About 55% of Indian exports to the U.S. are expected to take a hit from tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. Washington deciding last week to slap an additional 25% duties on Indian goods, a move to punish New Delhi over its continued purchase of Russian oil. That brings the total tariff rate to 50%. That's the highest for any American trading partner. The 55% figure announced today by the Indian government takes into account the initial 25% tariff the U.S. had already imposed. Indian officials holding a meeting with the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs on the impact of those tariffs. According to reports, India's Ministry of External Affairs told the panel ahead of the meeting that Washington's decision has forced New Delhi, quote, into a geopolitical contest not of its making. Ishan Garg joins us live from New Delhi. What more do we know about the Indian government's briefing? Are there any other steps New Delhi could take to ease tensions, at least on trade, with Washington?
We understand that this briefing to the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs is going to be attended by officials of the Ministry of External Affairs, but also by the Ministry of Commerce and Trade. So we understand that broadly two questions are likely to come into play. One will be India's overall foreign policy and its choices when it wants to deal with the U.S. and with the President Donald Trump's administration, but also the question of how trade and tariffs are being handled. We understand that the Ministry of External Affairs is likely to brief the panel by saying that India is still very much committed to prioritizing its broader ties with the United States, and that will likely be the core message that will go to this standing committee, which is bipartisan in nature. So it's not only made up of the ruling government officials, but also from members of the opposition party as well. As far as the strategy of the Indian government in the wake of these 50% tariffs that have now been imposed, we are seeing a two-pronged effort. We are seeing from the Indian government now that there are already being statements made by government officials, veiled statements to some degree, which are criticizing US's moves, saying that there are some powers which are jealous of India's rise. This is a statement I'm attributing to India's defense minister, who did not name the US, did not name President Donald Trump, but this is being seen as a veiled comment on the US. We're also seeing from reports that the Indian government is now potentially considering offering some sort of support to industries that are being hit by the tariffs, and these includes particularly textile, leather, as well as the shrimp industry.
All right, Ishan, the response there from the government level, but anecdotally on the ground and on social media as well. Apparently, public anger at these tariffs sparking calls in India to boycott American goods.
Absolutely. We are seeing in the past few days anger rising not only against U.S. imposition of tariffs, but more against President Donald Trump's statements about India, particularly in one statement where he said that India and Russia can take down their dead economies together. That seems to have struck and especially a raw nerve with the Indian population, with many now on social media, as well as in the Indian parliament, also calling for boycotting of U.S. goods. One member of Indian parliament from the opposition, Aam Aadmi Party, has said that if India now becomes a manufacturing powerhouse, starts boycotting U.S. goods, this would in turn actually impact U.S. companies more than American tariffs could impact the Indian economy. Now, right now, we're not seeing any disruptions in sales of any American companies. It's potentially because these calls for boycotts are still in the very early stages. But if it does come to fruition, it could be particularly problematic for companies like Apple, which in the last few months or years have made a contentious push to pivot their manufacturing from China to India.
Thanks, Ishan Garg, reporting live from New Delhi.